I would like to ask to come to the stage Sanne Goslinga. She's the Director of Talent at Marathon Venture Capital. Welcome, Sanne. Then Emilios Eracleous, Specialist XR Recruiter and co-founder of Immersive Research. Welcome, Emilios. And Yiannis Kanellopoulos, founder and CEO at Conf. Welcome.
Thank you.
Of course, that's for you.
All right, so thanks everyone for being here and for having this discussion with us. I have my notes here, sorry about that, but I need to remember a lot of things. So let's make sure that the microphones are open.
Yes.
Okay, I think this. Perfect. Okay, let's start. So today we're going to talk about the IT job market, which is booming. We see a lot of changes. Companies are growing or shrinking. And we want to discuss a few more things. How do you approach all those things and how we can see this situation that we're having. Combine this with new skills that have emerged. We have new demands from the market that needs to be served.
Right, and the main focus of the panel is about the exponential growth of the IT job market, and that's why we call it a big bang. And we would like your opinion about that. So let's start. I will start addressing now questions to you. You can take your microphones and swap between when you want to talk. Okay. I would also like a favor. Tell us a few things about yourself before answering its questions so that we know who you are. Okay? Perfect. So, Yiannis, the first question is for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, almost.
Almost, okay. During the last years, we see that the IT engineers and in general, the ask for talent for IT has increased drastically. You are the founder, CEO, and a mentor for many young talents. From your experience, how do you see this big bang of the IT job market? Why is it happening?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm Yiannis. Thank you for the invitation for being here. It's an honor. I'm CEO and founder of Code for Thought, indeed. And what we know best there is how to govern, help organizations govern their technology, be it a typical software system or like an AI system. We have built tools, we work with partners, and so on. And one of the things that we realized the last 6 or 7 years is that, at least in Greece, we are very good in not being proactive, but being ready to be proactive. So I think there are two main disruptors in our economy that led to what we are experiencing today. The first one is the capital controls back in 2015 that really, that was a compelling reason for all the banks in Greece, all the tier 1 corporations, to start investing heavily in their technology because overnight, the number of users that were using their web banking, mobile banking platforms grew by 10 or 20 times more, so they had to cope with that. The rest of the economy followed, and there was another main disruptor that wasn't any CEOs or board of directors, there was COVID, simply put. So everyone had to reinvent themselves and try to change the way they interact with their clients, with their partners, and everything. So I think these are the two main good reasons for what we experience today. It is also very interesting to see that, to see this growth in the Greek economy and the Greek market. At the same time that in the United States, we observe something really different. All these layoffs from the big tech and that are also affecting some companies who are part of American companies. I know pretty well a couple of companies in Greece whose employees are really now not feeling very comfortable about what happened to them. But I think that the main reason is that every medium to large corporation in Greece, they realize that if they don't reinvent themselves, they don't transform them, they won't be here on the next day.
Yes, of course. And also the increase of digital nomads everywhere. You can see they work remotely.
Yes, that as well, that helps. I think it is also another thing that facilitates or at least it helps the growth of the economy and also the remote working, the fact that many Greeks from their own home, they can work for an American company and what they get in return as a salary is 3 or 4 times more when they get in Greece. This also helps and drives prices, the salaries higher.
The
sorry,
salaries,
price.
yes.
Thanks a lot, Yanni. So I would like to go back to Emilios. So Emilia, sorry for changing your name because you have a Greek, I know, not Greek, Cypriot Greek ancestry. So Emilia, before I address you the question, would you like to share a few things about you and then I'll move on.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here. A big thank you to the organization committee for inviting us today. My name's Emilios. I'm a co-founder and recruiter at Immersive Search. We are a recruitment agency focused specifically on recruiting augmented reality and virtual reality professionals. And we set up to basically address 3 key issues: help people find work opportunities, help people upskill through our training partners, and help graduates with their first steps into the industry.
Thanks a lot, Emilia, for being here. So you're an XR recruiter, so whatever R. So do you notice this trend also in your space? What are the roles that are most needed currently?
So our space is quite challenging because there isn't a universal language for what roles look like, and there aren't defined guidelines for how the technologies are designed or developed. But from our experience recruiting in the marketplace so far, we've broken it down into 5 sections: engineering, designers, product managers and producers, and marketing. So if we focus on engineers, you've got front-end, back-end, graphics engineers, and then Unity developers and Unreal developers, depending on which game engine they're working on. If we're talking about designers, you've got 3D artists, environmental artists, technical artists, UI, UX designers, and character artists. Product managers, you've got producers, producers/product managers. And then you've got marketing professionals who should have an idea of what AR and VR is. And then depending on the client, you could also have instructional designers and storytellers. So yes, it's
I
quite
would
a
love
lot.
to be a storyteller. You know, it changed my career now.
Matina, so you're a storyteller now. So let's see what the future brings us. So
Yes.
yeah, Matina.
And the next question is for Sanne. Are startups becoming more attractive nowadays to engineers, and in which roles? As a director of talent in a venture capital, which skills are the ones that startups are looking for nowadays?
Yes, hi, and thank you so much for inviting me, obviously, today. As Matina said, my name is Sanne Goslinga. I'm the Director of Talent at Marathon VC here in Athens. I have been there now for almost, well, over a year and a half, I think. And what I mostly do is work with our startups, our portfolio companies, on anything people-related. But besides that, what we also focus on is really building up more the community here, so really focusing on projects that help and benefit the startup community. So one of those projects, for example, last year that we released was a compensation report, which was focused basically on tech salaries in startups. And this year we're releasing it again next week, a little bit larger. This time we have 40 companies instead of 27 participating. Quite a lot of data points, so I was stuck in lots of numbers for the past 2 months, which is usually not what I do. But it's been quite exciting, and we'll release it next week on our blog. So check it out if you're interested.
Perfect,
I'm sure
yes.
you all are. And yeah, to answer your question. Why? Last year, I actually already said that startups are increasingly becoming more interesting, at least from a compensation perspective. I think that what we see very much so is that people have the idea that at a startup, you are not going to be earning as much as what you would be at a big corporate or a larger tech company. At the same time, I think what you also see is that, well, recently we can see that or that we talk about job safety within startups. How do I know that I will keep my job? But I guess we all realize that job safety is never really there, because in the last few months, if not the last year, at least we see that a lot of companies have been laying off, the most recent one obviously being Amazon, with 20,000 people being laid off. So I think that that's something we can probably push aside, and then we can think about, what does make it attractive to work at a startup? And that's not for everyone, for sure. I think, definitely it's hard work, but okay, most people will say probably that they work hard in their roles. But I think there's also things like having a lot of autonomy, being kind of put in the deep end and try to swim and not sink. I think, you're given a lot of responsibility. So I think the learning curve is tremendous when you work at a startup. At the same time, there's still always, and I noticed it particularly here in Greece, that there's quite a hesitance towards startups. I had a friend of mine who's definitely, I would say, 10 years my junior. She was starting off in her career, probably in her career for a few years, and looking to go to the next step. She had gotten 3 offers, 2 from larger companies. One of that was Nestle, and another one which was Persado, which is obviously more of a startup. And she asked me, which one should I take? And I said to her, well, which one did you find the job more interesting? Which one did you think, hey, this is a person, a manager that I could really learn from? This is exciting, the company culture, which one excited you really? Yeah, the Persado one. I said, okay, well, go for it. And then she responded, but don't you think I should go for the Nestle one? And I said, who said that? Your father? And she said, yes, because I thought it would be better for my CV. Yes. But I think we see nowadays that names on CVs, particularly, and Emilios might, contend to that a bit more as well, but especially from my perspective, things we don't look for as much anymore on CVs are like degrees or, what the major companies people perhaps or well-known house name brands have worked for. We look more for what are the skill sets that somebody has acquired during that time.
Okay, great.
Amazing. Yeah, and we see more and more startups booming, so let's see what the future gives us next. I would like to go back to you, Yiannis, and so you're in the AI field, you're an expert, and you see many people in that industry, but for many people it might be a bit intimidating. What would a junior developer need to enter that space, or a senior developer to reskill themselves to be able to work on AI?
Okay, I think there are 2 tracks here. First of all, AI systems are software systems. So in order to build such a system, you need to have basic software engineering skills. So for a software engineer, it's not like a major shift in their career or skill set. I would say that there is a complementarity of between 70 to 80%. The rest 20%, which is like how do I create a model, or how do I implement it, how do I find the algorithm, train it, and so on. Of course, you need to study, you need to read, but thankfully there is a plethora of materials out there, a plethora of platforms like Coursera or whatever. There are notebooks, there are ways that a software engineer or a junior software engineer can study them, can go through lots of open source stuff working out there for them, open data sets, I mean, you name it. So if somebody has the appetite to learn and let's say make a switch or working in a system which is more, let's say, diverse in the sense it has its typical software components, it has its AI components, it's not something impossible, it's not something, it requires some investment of time, but it's not something really that changes their work or by orders of magnitude or whatever.
So but the background should be IT, at least.
Well, in our company that we have the track for AI, for building AI systems, I mean, we have statisticians who love coding and who love also software engineering. So essentially, you need to have the analytical thinking, the algorithmic thinking, the knowledge of, a basic knowledge of one programming technology, preferably an object-oriented one, But that's about it. I think it's not something really, it's not rocket science, let me put it like that. I don't know if Sanne agrees, because he has seen lots of startups and people that working in this field also. But to me, of course, I'm not trying to be simplistic, but it's not very difficult. It's not something that, as I said, there is so much material out there to learn and immerse yourself in it.
So for everyone like me who does not feel like smart enough to go in the AI, here's our chance. Let's do it.
Well, I don't think you have to be very smart to work in AI. I think it's overrated.
Okay.
Okay, so now we talked about training. I would like to ask Emilios something regarding remote training and if is this happening. And do they use for that headsets like Quest 2 and HoloLens 2? And are they easy to adopt? And what challenges do we have in this field?
Yes, so Accenture, for example, recently ordered 60,000 Oculus 2 headsets for VR training and to onboard new recruits. Mercedes have shifted their employing training to the Microsoft HoloLens 2 headset. And as a result of that, the feedback is it's leading to faster and more precise vehicle servicing for customers and for dealers. Toyota and Audi are also they've successfully implemented automotive VR training solutions as well. How easy is it to adopt? That's a good question. So technical feasibility. It requires a lot of time and effort to create training scenarios because you need to replicate real-world scenarios in an environment first. And there are times when companies realize that the technology is just not ready. And then the solutions can require heavy research and development before it's rolled out to new customers. Now, not everyone has the time or the resources available to be able to deal with that. And also, if we look at medical cases, specifically augmented reality, where the slightest inaccuracies can actually end someone's life. So it is quite serious, and there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be put in place in order for risks to be reduced. Now, cost. If we look at the Microsoft HoloLens 2, it's approximately $3,500. That's geared for the enterprise market. And the Quest 2, which is more affordable, it's around $300 for the consumer. Both have different use cases. The HoloLens for mixed reality and the Quest for virtual reality. And the Quest 2 has a pass-through feature which lets you view your surroundings in black and white whilst you're wearing a headset. So yeah, it's quite cool.
It's tremendous cool. Are you kidding? I would go to a new job and go to onboarding, not in the office, but in a virtual place. That's amazing.
Yeah. And especially now, looking at how the environment is and a lot of people working remotely, not everyone, a lot of people are happy to work remotely and prefer new, engaging ways of learning. And virtual reality and augmented reality offer these environments to have a more engagement way to learn.
Okay, so understand that the next time I'm going to play on an Oculus, I'll say that I'm training myself. So thanks a lot for that, Emilia. So I would like to go back to Sanne, and the question starts from culture. Culture is something that we hear a lot, and especially with startups, and it might be a differentiating factor sometimes. What do you believe differentiates the culture between companies, and does it evolve between generations? What's your take on? I mean, it's an overrated word, so I would like your take on it.
Yeah, I think it's also often quite difficult. Everybody's now saying, I think, kind of, we're over this term that everybody's saying, oh, we're not ping pong tables. But I think that mostly we were at some point. But I think mostly, and also we are not values written on a wall, right? Mm-hmm. So this is not what culture is about. Culture is more about the rituals that you have, the behaviors that you have within the company. And what I see, or what I've seen through having worked for very small companies, startups usually starting at about 20 people, to growing them to over 2,500 people in Europe. So I've seen in my positions very much that culture really changes also. Not some core elements, perhaps. So if I think about a company that I worked for, it was very focused on being very analytically driven, whatever department we were in. And that's something that the founders found very important, and that never really changed. But we do see that other things change, and also values within companies change as it grows. And this is also why we often see that once a company gets to, let's say, from 5 people to 50 people, or to 100, or 250 to 500, to getting to the thousands, perhaps, that people are leaving the company because they no longer feel that this is has the right culture. They feel that the size probably has changed that, and they see certain things changing. At the same time, I would also argue that that's probably also a good thing that they leave. I don't think that we should try to keep everyone in the company all the time. That's not the goal. Not for the employer, but also not for the employee. But that can be a whole nother discussion on exiting, of course. But I think culturally, when we talk about culture, what we should focus on more is, what is really important for us within the people that we hire. So what we look for mostly is thinking about what questions am I really asking within an interview that will bring out the traits and usually the behaviors that you would see from someone that represents what you want to have within the company. So what's very important is to think about, asking behavioral interviewing questions, and not questions of likability, but really thinking about, okay, how would this person respond in certain situations, so that you can understand if that is also matching the culture that you are building or that you want them to help build within the company. So there are, of course, many other things that you can do together, but I think the most important thing, especially if you're, let's say, a founding team, and I work with a lot of seed stage companies, or that's Series A, so smaller companies, is to really, as founders, understand together, what's really important for you. And that's not about writing down like, here are our 8 or our 4 values, but it is something that you say, these are things or traits, or these are things within behaviors that we see that are so important for us, we wouldn't want to hire someone who doesn't fit that mode. And I would say that in most of the cases where a hire is a mishire, it's usually because of a cultural fit.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I would like to double down on what you said, where you said that sometimes culture changes, and it's fine for people to leave, and sometimes we feel that good culture means pleasing people, but maybe that's not always the case.
It's the opposite, actually, or the opposite, I wouldn't say either, but the thing is, if you try to please everyone, and this is also, I've had conversations with founders here, with our portfolio or outside of our portfolio, that you said, we're a family business. And I hear this a lot in Greece, that we are a family business, which is not to say that, you cannot be friendly and treat everyone with respect, absolutely. But the problem is that once you start to try keeping everyone in the company, also those that are perhaps not performing at the level that they should be, the issue is that your high performers will start to feel treated differently, and they will start to leave because they think, hey, why are they being treated the same way as I am? Why are they getting the same pay raise? Why are they getting the same as I am getting? And that's when your high achievers will start to leave. So I think you need to you are running a business, and you need to figure out for yourself, what is important. And as your job, whether that is a C-level job or in HR, you have to make hard decisions, and you will have to let people go as well. And the best thing you can do in those difficult decisions is help support them with finding a new role, help them with some time so that they can find that new role, help them maybe with connecting them with other people. But there are going to be mishaps, and there are going to be times when somebody should no longer stay within the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Great, thank you. So the next question is about you, Yiannis. You have founded one of the first AI companies that does AI testing and auditing. And I would really like to know how ready is AI to offload the engineers? I mean, will it replace the code developers at some point?
Okay. The cynic inside me is going to scream, no way.
Because I'm an engineer, you know.
Yes, yes. There was a very interesting Twitter debate between Grady Buch, a very well-known software engineer, and a startup that was claiming that by using our solution, which combines AI and blockchain, somehow developers will become 10 or 100, from 10 to 100 times more productive. His blunt answer was not in your lifetime. But anyway, I mean, we're already experiencing the things like Copilot, for instance, that they are actually quite interesting and helpful for the software engineers. So I think that for narrow and very well-defined tasks, or boring tasks, or boilerplating tasks, AI can help and offload some burden from the software engineers. But I think that let's say, the heavy stuff, the core functionality, the business functionality, these are not things you can replace software engineer, because first and foremost, software engineering is about problem solving. First, you solve the problem, you create the algorithm, and then you implement it. So this thing still needs human capacity, let's say. And one of the most important things in software that still the industry keeps forgetting is that 80% of the cost of a typical software system, be it an AI system or a software or any software system, 20% is the CapEx. The support and the maintenance, the OpEx, is the other 80%. So even if I use an AI to generate my code, let's say, or replace me, who's going to do the changes to the right place in the code and then make sure that the code will continue working? And another thing that I started my career in 2001 in Accenture also. So at that time, everybody was talking about language conversion tools. So you had a COBOL or PL1 system. By using this magical tool, you can convert it to Java, and you need no engineers. No engineers. You just put the code to the tool and then produce it Java, and you're done. You have your, let's say, mainframe from COBOL to Java. It never worked. It was another failure. Then we had the no-code solutions that even a business analyst without programming experience can write code. Nobody did that, or very few did that. Now we have the low-code solutions, plus the AI solutions. I think that we're getting, and the low-code are being successful for very well-defined and narrow tasks.
But in our lifetime, or ever?
No, I mean, we see that there are some low-code solutions that are still working, but solving very specific problems.
Okay.
Not like an enterprise solution can be built using an AI or a low-code solution. So we're getting to the level that AI can offload some burden, but this is going to be exactly that. It's going to offload burden from the developers, not to replace them. I mean, right now we have like 1 million empty job positions in Europe.
Yes.
I think so. So I don't think any AI can, make that need redundant.
Congratulations, IT engineers. We all keep our jobs.
Or we have to change our skill set. Even like an AI produce your initial code, then still a human being need to support it. But this is me being, this is me being kind of pragmatic or pessimistic. There may be some other people way more visionary than me that can say that in 10 years' time, forget about this profession. I don't know.
I think that's the best approach. We would like to think something like that might happen.
Yes.
I'll rephrase one of the phrases that are very common in our times, job secured.
No, for me, in general, I see software development and software engineering not as a job security, it's job satisfaction.
Yep,
I think definitely. Most of the people in this auditorium and the software engineers, they do that because they love it. And they like solving problems and use technology to solve those problems. I think this is, and that's the case with our profession.
Mm-hmm. Of course it is. And now, Emilia, I would like to get a glimpse of the future. Will we have hiring interviews in the Metaverse? And how do you believe this will pan out? And do you have any tips for people that might do interviews in the future in the Metaverse?
Yes, well, us at Immersive Search, we do conduct interviews in the metaverse. So there are platforms at the moment called Engage XR and AltSpace. If you've got a headset, we recommend you check those out. We meet and interact with potential new hires in these environments. We're able to walk in the worlds and get an intro about their career. The best thing about this is it's an experience and it remains in our memory for a long period of time. People these days are just fed up of Zoom. We're getting Zoom fatigues and it's just all a bit boring. This remains in our memory for a long period of time. And once the experience is over, it feels like we've been somewhere because your energy levels go down. And then when you remove your headset, you return into the real world. And I think one of the biggest compliments we can provide the technology is candidates tell us it's not an interview, but they've had an experience with us. But there are some disadvantages. You know, VR is not for everyone. So someone like myself, there are certain experiences I can take and can handle. Some experiences I simply can't, such as nausea and motion sickness for some experiences which are a bit too fast. But look, there's a lot of potential. There are more platforms coming. And what I wanted to do as well is just give some extra information for anyone who really wants to get into the industry and become an AR VR developer. There are just 7 key points that my colleague Rajat has put together. So skills, we'll start with programming. So whether it's C#, C++, Java, Swift, JavaScript, concepts like OOP, loops, and control logic can put you in a good stead. Software development, you know, any basic idea of web development, mobile app development, game development. General XR knowledge, so you must be familiar with the terms augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. XR software development kits, so for mobile, iOS or Android, each has a specific SDK. So for instance, there's AR Core, there's AR Kit, there's AR Foundation, there's Vuforia, and there's Wikitude. For VR specifically, there's a software development kit for each headset. So Oculus have their own headset SDK, so do Pico, and so do the HTC Vive. Machine learning and computer vision is also important because XR works on underlying computer vision algorithms that are abstracted away in methods and functions of existing software development kits. So research in terms of optimizing plain search, depth mapping are important, but at the same time they're tricky to develop. Then you've got UX design knowledge is important, and also 3D modeling and animation. So it could be Blender, Maya, Cinema 4D. They're great for prototyping experiences with animated 3D, and also graphics rendering. If you want to find out more about that, all you need to do is just type into Google AR VR skills, and there's an article link called 9 Steps to Become an AR VR Developer. I think it's got about 18,000 reads at the moment, and I really strongly recommend to check it out if this industry interests you.
Our to-do lists are, I think, full at the moment.
That sounds great, yes. So now we're talking about talent. The last question is for you, Sanne. Can you share some statistics regarding talent, location and salaries on startups, and what are the trends?
Yes.
The most difficult questions for the end, you know.
As I was sitting here, I thought to myself, I'm the one not having anything in my hand, so I don't have figures in my hand, but I do have some in my head, so I will tell you about those. So as I mentioned in the beginning, last year we conducted a review with 27 startups here in Greece. That was only focused on tech roles. This year we expanded that to non-tech roles, and we had 40 companies. I think we had a total of about 35,000 data points. So at some point my eyes went blank. I couldn't see numbers anymore, but after a week of rest, I went back into it. And looking at the trends and looking a little bit, because we can compare a little bit. I don't want to be too heavy of a comparison because, having more companies participate, there's always certain things that it's very difficult to say, okay, we can compare last year's data with this year's data and definitely see these trends, because not all of the same, it's not always the same information, and so there's some difficulties with that. But things that we do see, and I think it kind of resonates with what I'm hearing, or what we're hearing on the stage today also, is that we definitely see machine learning increasing in salary. So machine learning roles have increased, I wouldn't say tremendously. There's one that's increased quite significantly more, but definitely is on the rise. And I think that's not surprising, considering that we see more and more roles within this field also opening. The study, we conducted it based on levels, we conducted it based on the job titles, but we also conducted it looking at technology. And so Python is definitely up there from all the technologies. JavaScript's doing well, but I'd say definitely these two are doing really well.
Do you remember any statistics regarding security?
I will share with you later.
Okay.
I do know that it was not a highlight, let me put it this way. Okay. The other highlight was definitely DevOps. And I think DevOps is one that's increased significantly because there is a lack of talent.
And is there any Metaverse need?
No, I would say that most of the companies that participated would not have been in the space or touching it, maybe just briefly. Okay. But
sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Just to state, like, obviously there's a lack of talent in all of these roles, right? So not to say that, but DevOps, we definitely see that there's really a very large gap there. So that's on that. And the other thing that is, I think, a very positive trend is that we're seeing principal engineers and staff engineers starting to be paid equally to director roles and senior manager roles. So I think it's really nice to see that companies are starting to recognize more and more so that, the focus should not just be on managerial roles, especially not in engineering, when most engineers would rather not be a people manager. So I think, therefore, it's really positive to see that, that they see there are two tracks, an individual contributor track and a managerial track, and that those are starting to equalize when it comes to compensation now.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So let me try to wrap the idea of the panel. So I need to do DevOps with Python, use AI models to make my job easier while doing all this inside XR workspaces, and I think I'll be fine for the next few years. With funding, yeah. I think that's my to-do list. I'll need to write it down, and then I'll come back with more questions privately so I can make sure I use the best tools.
You will, of course, go back for the funding in Marathon.
Of course. I mean, I'm ready. I feel ready now.
We're ready for you.
Awesome.
You are the shortlist.
One thing I forgot to add is there are disadvantages of hiring and training in the metaverse, okay? So obsolete code after a few months and features start breaking, bugs pop up. So lots of engineering and maintenance support is required, which can be costly. Candidate reskilling, and also the training is not always so accurate, just as I mentioned previously with the medical. So there certainly are a lot of challenges.
More work for us, even better. Awesome. I would like to thank every one of you. This was a very knowledgeable discussion, and even though we had done a brief discussion of the things before, I learned even more things today, so thanks a lot for being part of this panel. We prepared the questions especially for you, and we gained a lot of knowledge, so thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. So we have a few presents as a reminder for this nice contribution, and we'll be happy to see you in a future conference. Thanks a lot.